Medicine, Faculty of Medicine in the University of Malaya since 2007. Professor Omar graduated from Makerere University in Uganda and subsequently obtained his postgraduate training in public health, including a doctorate in epidemiology from Harvard University. He was a fellow at Harvard and taught a course on the delivery of maternal and child health services. At Harvard Dana-Farber Cancer Institute in Boston, Massachusetts, he worked on cancer clinical trials and analysis of cancer epidemiological data from Eastern Cooperative Oncology Group. Additionally, Dr. Kasole obtained a certification in Arabic and Islamic Studies from Bilal Institute in Kampala, Uganda. Since June 2005, Dr. Kasole has been on the Faculty of Medicine of the University of Brunei, where he teaches undergraduate students courses on epidemiology, biostatics, and medical ethics. He teaches postgraduate courses on advanced research method and evidence-based health policy and practice. The King Fahd Medical City in Riyadh was fortunate in recruiting Dr. Kasole to its Faculty of Medicine in 2009. Dr. Kasole has served as an external examiner and consultant for several universities. He's fluent in 7 languages. Dr. Kasole has, in addition to his medical work, traveled to many countries conducting management programs for non-governmental organizations and community leaders for over the past 24 years. So truly, Dr. Kasole, you're definitely a polymath. So mashallah, we're very honored to have you with us. And the topic for this presentation of Dr. Kasole will be Professor Malik Badri, An Emotion of the Prophets, which is the last book that Professor Badri wrote before he passed away. Allah yarhamu. So without any further ado, the floor is yours. Ustad, welcome.
Bismillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. It's a pleasure to be at this conference that is talking about the legacy of my Sheikh and leader and teacher, Professor Malik Badri. I would like to start by thanking the International Association of Muslim Psychologists and the organizers of this conference for choosing this theme as the legacy of the conference. Professor Badri is the father of modern Islamic psychology. He has looked after this discipline over the past 60 years, like a father looks after his son or his daughter. And I think by the time he left this worldly life, the discipline had asserted its identity as a real discipline of Islamic psychology. In my presentation, I will be revealing many things that I got from several conversations with the late professor over several years, and also from reading his book on the emotional aspects of the Prophet's lives, and also my own reflections that arise from that. To start with, I would like to define the word in Arabic that we use for emotion. The official word in dictionary is infial, but I agree with the Professor Malik Badri, it's not the right word to use. It's not appropriate for prophets. So we shall be using the word atifa to refer to emotions. Now, we will focus on atifa because infial has got undesirable implications. And I will also not use the word prophet's emotional reactions. I will use prophet's emotional experiences or emotional responses, because their emotional experiences and responses were with many people. They were not alone in the picture. So it's better to call them experiences and responses and not reactions. What about emotion? It's not easy to define emotion, but again, this is where if we're interested in integration, Islamization of knowledge, we need to come into the picture. The Western understanding of emotion is different from our understanding of emotion. The Western one is materialistic, neurophysiological, and as a physician, I know this very well. It's part of my job. It's mechanistic. And because of that, they believe they can modify emotions, either chemically or physically. But for us, there is a moral aspect to emotion. There is a deeper aspect to emotion. And I think emotions are seated in the complex of ruh, nafs, aql, and qalb, because these are four words that are manifestations of the basic human essence, al-dhat al-insaniyya. And I think emotions lie within these areas. Although anatomically, we know that the hippocampus at the base of the brain is the area that you can stimulate and produce certain emotional responses, or if there is a disease there, emotional responses will be affected. But that's the anatomical part. But the deeper one is in the ruh, the nafs, the aql, and in the qalb. So we need to remember Professor Malik Badri by developing the non-mechanistic understanding of emotions. We need to search deeper in the Quran for the meaning of emotion beyond the neurophysiological responses. And I think the beginning should be about love, the mutual love between the human and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And after that, we will move on to the balance between the emotions of hope and fear. We need to explore these things, do a lot of research in them, and I think they will open up new avenues to understanding emotions from the Islamic point of view. As Quran tells us, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبْكُمْ. This is mutual love. You love Allah and He loves you. يا أيها الذين آمنوا من يرتد منكم عن ديني فسوف يأتي الله بقوم يحبهم ويحبونه. People whom Allah loves and they love you. So the love between Allah and humans is mutual love. We need to explore this concept and how it can affect the emotional experiences. The second thing arising from love or mutual love is we need to study the balance between rahba and raqba, hope and fear. Actually, these two are two sides of the coin of Allah's mutual love for His creations. You want to hope from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, please Him because you love Him, and you fear annoying Him. So these are two coins of love, and we need to go deeper into understanding what Quran says means when it says وَدُوا خَوْفًا وَطَمَعًا. Once we start researching these concepts, inshallah, we shall develop more understanding of emotion. And emotion has been mentioned a lot in the Quran. Actually, it's a lot of emotion in the Quran. That's why when you read it with understanding, it has got an impact on you, an immediate impact, because there is something emotional in it. Help, kindness was mentioned in the Quran, mercy was mentioned, anger was mentioned, regret, and many other emotions. You could make a list of 100 emotions that the Quran has talked about. Now, Professor Malik Badri says that emotions relate to the three fundamentals of Deen, Usuluddin. As you know, Usuluddin are Iman, Islam, and Ihsan. Islam, which is behavior, is the beginning. You say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, and you pray and you pay zakah and you make hajj and you som Ramadan. That's behavior. Then there is Iman, which is cognition, understanding the Creator and His power and His authority. That's a higher level. And then Ihsan is the highest level among the three fundamentals. And Ihsan covers both Islam and Ihsan. So Professor Malik Badri says emotion lies within Ihsan. And I think a lot of times we have this cognition emotion balance. We discuss emotions related to cognition, to intellect or not. And even in the popular speaking, we say that person is emotional, he's not cognitive, not intellectual. But there is a balance that needs to be understood. And Professor Badri had a deep understanding of this balance because of his Sufi background, which is, as you know, Sufi practices are rich in religious emotions. And this contrasts a lot with the emotionless religious practices that we find in some Islamic schools. And Professor Badr used to condemn those. He says there is emotion in religion and we need to understand and deal with it. Now, let me go on to talk about humanity of the prophets, because we are talking about emotions in prophets. The important thing to emphasize is that prophets are humans and emotions are part of humanity. So if prophets are humans, prophets have got an emotional life. There are many verses in the Quran that emphasize the humanity of the prophets. ما المسيح ابن مريم إلا رسول الله. Says Isa was a messenger. He had a mother. They used to eat food, you know, no more human beings. قالت لهم رسلهم نحن إن نحن إلا بشر مثلكم. The messengers were telling their followers, we are humans like you. We are humans like you. Then here, قل إنما أنا بشر مثلكم. I am a human like you. يوحى إلي. Get messages. ولقد أرسلنا رسلا من قبلك وجعلنا لهم أزواجا وذرية. Quran tells us that messengers were sent before Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, and they had wives and they had children. So these are human beings. If they are human beings, they have got emotions like other human beings, and that is what Professor Malik Badri was writing about it. I just want to emphasize that whenever Professor Malik writes about things, he's not writing as an academician, comparing various sources of evidence. He writes with himself in the picture. He always has got his reflections. Professor Badri writes about his reflections, and his personal perspective is always involved. He always puts his feelings and emotional reflections and experiences in what he writes. So when we read his book on the emotional aspects of the lives of prophets, we need to understand that this is a personal reflection of a deep thinker. Now, Professor Malik Badri reached a stature in his scholarship that he had the confidence and courage to incorporate his personal feelings in his scholarship. Because many of us trained in the Western perspective, we are told that there is scholarship and their personal feelings and they don't meet. No, he used to incorporate his feelings and his experiences. And instead of following the absolute objectivity that is sometimes encouraged in the academia and denies the thinker's personal feelings. And I think in this area, Professor Malik Badri was very advanced for his time, because even for us in the medical research area, we have had a shift in our medical research. I now teach my students not the classical medical statistics, because classical medical statistics says draw your conclusion from your current observations, experiences. But now we are replacing it with the Bayesian statistics or Bayesian approach, because the Bayesian approach realized that somebody approaching a problem, researching in a problem, has got priors. He has got prior experiences, prior beliefs, some of them objective, some of them are subjective. Now, classical statistics did not incorporate this in the research conclusion, but Bayesian statistics incorporates them to reach a posterior conclusion. And that's why this Bayesian thinking is now taking over medical decision-making and medical diagnosis, because of the ability to combine the prior and the posterior. So Prof. Badri was very advanced in this area. Over many years, I have had interactions with Prof. Malik Badri. We've been talking a lot and exchanging ideas. I know he respects his own interior. He knows himself. He knows his feelings. He knows his thoughts. And I think part of this, the Sufi background in Sudan in which he grew, always has had a presence in his thoughts. He used to talk to me a lot about his experiences with the Sufi sheikhs in Sudan. He had a lot of reverence for them. But unfortunately, I did not probe a lot about his idea about the karamats that the sheikhs can have. But he did tell me about personal experiences of parapsychological phenomena, and he strongly disagreed with the secular psychologists who dismissed them outright. So he was a deep person. When you come to know him, he has a depth to him, and you need to appreciate this depth in order to understand what he writes. Now we come to the book. The book is very interesting because only half of it is about the emotions of the prophets. The first half is purely about establishing Islamic psychology and dismissing the secular psychology. In the second half, he talked about the emotions of the prophets, but again, from the point of view of the new Islamic psychology, and he used the emotional experiences of prophets to discuss the relationship between nature or heredity and nature or environment. So if you are reading this book to look for graphic examples of emotional experiences, you're not going to find a lot because this is a book about Islamic psychology. Now, Prof. Malik Badri was a strong critique of modern secular psychology, right from his first book, The Dilemma of the Muslim Psychologist. And he pointed out something that many of us should know. A lot of what's in modern psychology, as Professor Sigmund Koch said, is pseudo-knowledge. It's not based on even materialism, empirical findings, because there are certain personal and cultural assumptions from the Western culture and civilization that are hidden in the psychology that we are taught as secular psychology. And I think we need to accept a very clear precept that secularism is also religion. It's not absence of religion. It's not being religiously neutral. It's a religion, but it hides under science, empiricism, and objectivity. And that religion is the ancient religion of Europe, from the Greeks and from the Romans. When Europe got rid of Christianity, they did not become religiously neutral. They went back to their religion, and that's secularism. So if we look at secularism as a religion, it will be easy for us to discuss. Now, Professor Malik Badri, in his book, destroyed one by one the major psychological schools in the West. He criticized the Freudian psychoanalysis, which based on sexual impulses. He demolished the behavioral school, although he also recognized its advantages in terms of psychological treatment. Then he destroyed psychobiology because he thought it equates humans to animals, thinking that since we have got similar biology, we must have similar psychology. Or psychobiology commits the big mistake of treating al-aql, the mind, to be the same as the brain. The brain is everything because there is a ruh in the human being. Unfortunately, we don't know much about the ruh. وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي وَمَا أُوتِيتُ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. So, in his critique of modern psychology, from its materialistic and mechanistic theories, Professor Malik Badri advanced Islamic alternatives. He always does this. He criticizes, but then he gives you an alternative. He was very adamant that modern secular psychology is not morally neutral. You know, it claims to be morally neutral. It's not morally neutral. We need to know that in this world, we cannot be morally neutral because there is khair and there is shar. There is good and there is evil. Towards the end of his life, he used to talk to me about the pleasure that he's seeing that modern psychology is beginning, or some secular psychologists are beginning to accept or appreciate non-material phenomena like parapsychology, telepathy, clairvoyance, meditation, dream interpretation, psychokinesis, which is moving things without touching them, the foreign language syndrome, when somebody can suddenly start speaking languages he didn't know before. They're beginning to not to accept them fully, but they're beginning to listen to this, which means that the emphasis on absolute mechanistic view of the human is beginning to wear down. He did also talk about Muslim writers on the prophetic emotional experiences. And one of the theses was written by a student whom excused because a student, he couldn't write all his feelings. Also Said Qutb wrote about the emotional aspects of the prophets in the Quran, but he says those did not go deep enough. So in his book, he tried to remedy that one. Prof. Badri explained and described 4 types of emotional experience of prophets as humans, but these are not ordinary humans. They are protected. In addition to their human emotional experiences, they have got extra protection from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so they do not make mistakes that we human beings can make. The first one that it described is the immediate reflex response, like all humans. When you say snake, you get afraid. Sayyidina Musa alayhi salatu wassalam, when Allah told him, وَمَا تِلْكَ بِيَمِينِكَ يَا مُوسَى, what's in your right hand? قَالَ هِيَ عَصَايَ أَتَوَكَّأُ عَلَيْهِ. He says, it's my stick. قَالَ أَلْقِهَا يَا مُوسَى. Allah told him, throw it. فَأَلْقَاهَا فَإِذَا هِيَ حَيَّةٌ تَسْعَى. He threw it, then it became a snake. And Musa became afraid. This is a normal human response, emotional response. Musa was behaving like a human being, but then the other part came. Allah told him, قُلْ خُذْهَا وَلَا تَخَفْ سَنُعِيدُهَا سِيرَتَهَا الْأُولَى. Allah told him, hold it, don't be afraid, because now he is the prophet. He has got a human response, but Allah is giving him support in dealing with it. Another aspect of this is with our Prophet ﷺ in the Battle of Hunain, when Muslims were defeated. As a reflex action, he just moved ahead and called them into battle again. He called them into battle again, and then, inshallah, they were able to be successful. ثم أنزل سكينته على رسوله وعلى المؤمنين. Allah help the believers. So this is a reflex response that prophets have, but they, in addition, have got Allah's support in whatever they respond to. The second type of reflex that Professor Malik Badri talked about is an emotional response after reflection. This is not immediate. It's not sudden. Like Sayyidina Hud, when they threatened to kill him, he said, Inni tawakkatu Allahi Rabbi wa Rabbukum. I'm making tawakkul on Allah. You know, he thought about it and he faced it. And then Also our Prophet and Abu Bakr, when they were in the cave and the mushrikeen who were looking to kill them came at the mouth of the cave, Abu Bakr, with his great iman, got fear. But see what happens. ألا تنصروه فقد نصر الله إذ أخرجه الذين كفروا ثاني اثنين إذ هما في الغار, when two of them were in the cave, إذ يقول لصاحبه لا تحزن. The Prophet was telling Abu Bakr, لا تحزن, don't be sad. إن الله معنا, Allah is with us. So this is a prophetic emotional reaction. There is a lot of fear, there is a lot of danger, and his reaction is measured, is modulated, because Allah is there to give him the necessary support. The third type that Prof. Malik Badri talked about is what we call a negative response. You know, sometimes our emotional response is pushed by something negative, shaitan, iblis. But the Prophet ﷺ are protected from this one because they have only good companions. They don't have any companions around them who can push them to evil. Imam Muslim reported from Ibn Mas'ud that the Prophet ﷺ said, ما منكم من أحد إلا وقد وكل به قرينة. He says that every one of you has got a companions min al-jinn, from the jinn, who is with them. This jinn can tell you to do bad things or can tell you to do good things. قال وإياك, he said, and you, Prophet? He said, وإياك, he said, yeah, I also have. إلا أن الله عناني عليه فأسلم فلا يأمرني إلا بخير. He said, I also have a jinn with me, but my jinn is a Muslim. He doesn't tell me to do anything except good. So it means the prophets are protected from evil or negative emotional reaction. Sometimes there are emotional reactions from the prophets that some people may say are negative. This needs to be explained. Like in Surah Abasa, Abasa wa tawalla an ja'ahu al-a'ma. The Prophet والسلام, had spent time teaching Ibn Abi Maktoum, Ibn Maktoum. He's a blind man. He taught him and then asked him, do you have any more questions? The man said, no. Then the Prophet moved on to do da'wah to other people, Walid bin Mughira and others. The man followed him, pulling his cloth. He said, I have questions for you. As a human, he frowned, but the blind man couldn't see the frown. For that, Quran came down. It's like a condemnation. Abasa wa tawalla. He frowned and turned away, and jahul a'ma, because the blind man has come to him. So this looks like a negative emotion, but actually, the Prophet didn't do anything wrong. He had taught the man everything. And the man kept on preventing from teaching more other people. So if he was a normal human being, this is a normal emotional reaction. There is no problem with it. He did not abuse, he did not shout. He just had an expression on his face. But because he's a prophet, he is judged at a higher standard. See, I want to mention this is a normal human emotional response, but prophets have got a higher standard. That's why Quran was revealed to say Abasa wa tawalla and jahul a'ma. Now let us talk about the fourth type of emotional response of the prophets. And this is the commonest and the most important. These are positive moral responses of the prophets, which were their responses all their life, but these emotions arise from their basic preparation for prophethood, because their positive human nature was created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He gave them special preparation, special training, so that whenever they are in an emotional situation, they will respond in a positive way. We have evidence of this preparation for prophethood, when the Prophet ﷺ got اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم, the first verse, he was in a big stress. It's a big message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He went to his wife Khadija. He was shaking. When he went to Khadija, he said, Zammiluni, Zammiluni, cover me, cover me. فَزَمَّلُوهُ, they covered him حتى ذهب عنه الروع, until he settled down. فقال لخديجة, he told Khadija what happened. Then he said, لقد خشيت على نفسي, I got afraid. Khadija answered, كلا, no, don't be afraid. Because she's telling him, because she knows him. He has been prepared for prophethood. He has been prepared for difficult situations. His emotional base is very strong. Kalla. Wallahu ma yukhzik Allah. Allah will not leave you. Innaka latasil ar-raham. You will join kindred relations. وتحمل الكل وتكسب المعدوم وتقرئ الضيف وتعين على نوائب الحق. So she was telling him all the great things that are in his emotional repertoire. Why? Because she was with him in the pre-prophethood days, and she saw the preparation, the training of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for him to meet difficult situations. Also, Sayyidah Aisha, one time she was asked, what's the character of the prophet? She told them, read Surah Al-Mu'minun. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ, until the end of the verse. So these are all characteristics of believers that the prophets, before their mission, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them and prepared them. So Prof. Malik Badr was saying all prophetic emotional responses were conditioned by the special training that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them, by the special equipment that Allah equipped them with. Now, he used the prophetic emotional experiences to explain the interaction between heredity, nature, and environment or nurture in defining the emotional outcome, because the two of them have got an impact on a person. But he made it very clear that the human being is born with a clean slate. كل مولود يولد على الفطرة. The human being is born with a clean slate of fitra. It means a positive. The human being is born positive. The bad things come later on from the parents and from the environment. And part of this fitra is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the human being and gave the human being the ability to see right and wrong, to be guided right, to be guided the other way. وَنَفْسٌ مَا سَوَّاهَا فَالْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. Then, so what happens is that a human has got within him the capacity, the tools to react emotionally right, in the right way, in the way of the khair. It's only the environment that can spoil or modify that. And the environment is from Iblis, because Iblis took leave from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to confuse humans. Yeah? He said, قَالَ رَبِّي فَانظُرْنِي إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ. He asked Allah, Ya Allah, give me time during their lifetime until they are resurrected. قَالَ فَإِنَّكَ مِنَ الْمُنظَرِينَ. Allah told him, yes, I've given you time. It's a test. إِلَى يَوْمِ الْوَقْتِ الْمَعْلُومِ. قَالَ رَبِّي بِمَا أَغْوَيْتَنِي لَأُزَيِّنَنَّ لَهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَغْوِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. Iblis, out of his envy, he said, I'm going to mislead the humans. So the good human nature good human emotional heredity is spoiled because of Iblis's work. إِلَّا عِبَادَكَ مِنْهُمُ الْمُخْلَصِينَ, except your special servants. So the prophets are protected from Iblis. That is why their emotional reactions were all very pure.
Professor, just wanted to mention it's 5 minutes left. Jazakallah khairan.
Alhamdulillah. So now I will use the remaining time to mention what you all know about the emotional experience of Musa alayhi salam. As you know, Musa alayhi salam, his mother threw him in the river. He lost the love of his mother, but within a few minutes, a few hours, he was back to the love of his mother. And in Pharaoh's palace, the wife of Pharaoh was a foster mother. So Musa started with a lot of love. And Allah loved Musa alayhi salam. And he grew into a wise, knowledgeable youth. When he became a leader of Banu Israel, his emotions were tested. For example, when he came back and found that they had worshipped the cow, he was angry. But then this is a great thing. He got angry and very soon he backed up. He backed up and apologized. Why? Because he's protected from negative emotions. His experiences in Madian also prepared him when he went to meet Pharaoh. Musa had strong emotions. He wasn't afraid of Pharaoh. He was a king, powerful king, but he was not afraid of him because he grew up in the palace of Pharaoh. He grew up as a respected aristocrat, so he was not afraid of Pharaoh. So these are emotional experience of Musa alayhi salam. In the next 2 minutes, I will talk about the emotional experiences of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. Sayyidina Yusuf had the ability to interpret dreams, and Prof. Malik Badri gave a lot of time to discuss dreams, not from the materialistic point of view. He discussed the spiritual and emotional aspect of dreaming and dream interpretation. Sayyidina Yusuf had the temptation with the women in the palace, but Allah protected him. Again, this is the whole thing. لَقَدْ هَمَّتْ بِهِ وَهَمَّ بِهَا. He was in that situation that Allah protected him, because the prophets are normal human beings, but when they have got emotional expressions, emotional experiences, Allah always protects them. And despite the bad treatment that his brothers did to him, Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam forgave them. He forgave everything, because again, these are the emotions that are supposed to be in the prophet. So our conclusion is that prophets are human beings. They experience emotions that humans experience, but there are some differences because they have got special divine preparation for their prophethood. They are able to express themselves emotionally in ways that are superior to what we find in normal human beings. Secondly, they have good al-isma. They are protected from making mistakes. Prophets do not make mistakes. There's what you call major errors and minor errors. When there is a minor error, it's corrected immediately, but the definition of minor error for prophets is from our normal from their point of view. What prophets do and people think is an error and had to be corrected is from the higher criteria of prophethood. Otherwise, as normal human beings, these are small, they're nothing. They can get angry, but when they get angry immediately, they retort and go back. The other conclusion is that dreams are a rich form of emotional expression. Of course, there is a lot of distortion of reality, but we have not studied them sufficiently. And I think Muslim psychologists are supposed to spend time and effort to do more research on dreams. Prof. Malik Badri wrote a lot about dreams, and it's a subject that always consumed his interest. And as part of his legacy, we need to delve deeper into dreams and understanding them psychologically, spiritually, emotionally. Inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaykum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.